What if your top salesperson was 1,000 times more efficient? And what if a limitless digital workforce helped your number one find leads? A super team working 24/7 on their behalf, thinking, acting, and solving complex tasks so more deals closed. That would be one very efficient sales leader. Now, imagine if every person on your team worked to the power of 1,000. They can with Agentforce, the powerful AI from Salesforce. Learn more at salesforce.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Women in Product podcast. Today, my guest is Elena Verna. She's a growth and B2B SaaS growth operator with over 15 years of experience in scaling companies through product-led strategies. She's held leadership roles at companies like Miro, SurveyMonkey, Amplitude, and Dropbox, and she's worked across product-led growth, marketing, and analytics. She's also advised dozens of companies like Superhuman, Sanity, and MongoDB, and currently leads growth at Lovable. What's really interesting is that today's interview is actually not with a human. We are bringing this to you so you can see that technology is evolving so rapidly that it may or may not be detectable as to whether we're talking to an AI agent of Elena or to Elena herself. For the next 15 minutes, tune in and see what Elena's AI has to say, and let us know in the comments what you think.
Great, I'm ready when you are. What's on your mind?
Hi, Elena. Could you define what product growth is versus growth overall?
Sure thing. I see product growth as really focusing on using the product itself to drive acquisition, retention, and all those good things. It's different from overall growth because it's not just about marketing or sales. It's about making the product so valuable that people naturally want to use it and share it. Does that make sense? Or would you like me to elaborate more?
That makes sense. I know there's also PLG. Can you define that for us and tell us how that fits into product growth?
Absolutely. Product-led growth, or PLG, is a business strategy where the product is the main driver of customer acquisition, activation, and expansion. It fits into product growth because it's essentially putting product growth principles into action across the entire company. So instead of relying heavily on sales or marketing, the product experience itself is designed to attract and retain customers. Think of it as a more holistic approach to product growth. Is there anything specific about PLG you'd like to know?
Yes. Is it appropriate for all kinds of software businesses to have a PLG strategy? How would you determine whether it is appropriate for your business or not?
That's a really insightful question. While PLG is powerful, it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all solution. I don't think it's a viable growth motion for every business. One way to determine if PLG is right for your business is to consider your target customer. For example, PLG cannot succeed in the enterprise segment with enterprise buyers like sales-led growth can. It's hard to communicate enterprise value prop in a product. You have to have the right group of decision makers on board. End users are different from the buyer, and sales can more effectively increase perceived value. On the other hand, sales-led growth cannot succeed in the small to medium-sized business segment because it may not be the preferred way to transact, and annual contract values cannot justify human involvement. Ultimately, it depends on your specific product, target market, and business goals. What kind of business are you thinking about applying PLG to?
This is really a general question to educate people who work in product management now who may be considering either advocating for a PLG strategy at their company or perhaps getting into the growth area as a career change.
I see. For product managers considering advocating for a PLG strategy or transitioning into growth, it's crucial to understand that PLG isn't just a set of tactics, but a fundamental shift in how a company operates. I think it's important to assess whether the product can deliver value independently and create a delightful user experience. If the product requires extensive hand-holding or doesn't offer immediate value, PLG might not be the best fit. Also consider whether the company culture is ready to embrace a product-centric approach where the product team plays a central role in driving growth. For those looking to move into growth, I'd recommend getting familiar with data analytics, experimentation, and user behavior. Taking courses like the ones I created for Reforge can also be super helpful. Does that help give some direction?
Yes, I'd love to know how you measure success in product growth.
Measuring success in product growth is all about identifying the right metrics that align with your goals. I typically look at a combination of metrics across the user journey. For acquisition, I track metrics like the number of new users acquired through product-led channels, conversion rates from free to paid users, and the cost per acquisition compared to other channels. For activation, I focus on the percentage of new users who experience the aha moment and become active users. Retention metrics include user churn rate, customer lifetime value, and the frequency of product usage. And for expansion, I look at metrics like upsell and cross-sell rates, as well as the number of referrals generated by existing users. Ultimately, the specific metrics you choose will depend on your business model and goals. What metrics are you currently tracking or thinking about tracking?
Well, again, because this is a general question for people interested in growth across the spectrum, it would be great to understand what the tools in the toolbox are so people can make the right decisions. But given that you did give us a bunch of options here, how do you make the right decisions? How do you evaluate the metrics that are available to you and choose the ones that you think are going to give you the right set of measurements for you to know for sure that what you're doing is what is intended?
That's a great question. It's easy to get lost in the sea of metrics, so it's important to be strategic about which ones you focus on. I usually start by identifying the key goals for the product and the business. Are you trying to increase user acquisition, improve retention, or drive revenue growth? Once you have a clear understanding of your goals, you can identify the metrics that are most relevant to those goals. It's also important to consider the stage of your product and business. Early stage companies might focus more on acquisition and activation metrics, while more mature companies might prioritize retention and expansion. I also make sure to choose metrics that are actionable and easy to understand, so you can quickly identify areas for improvement and track progress over time. I also recommend regularly reviewing your metrics and adjusting them as needed. As your product and business evolve, your metrics should evolve as well. What do you think about this approach?
I think this is great, and it does sound like there's a framework here to use. However, in practice, it may be challenging for teams to figure this out without having somebody with some expertise in this area. So how would you advise a company that has not had a growth strategy prior, or at least a product growth strategy prior, to begin?
You're right. It can be tough to get started without some guidance. I'd suggest a few things. First, I'd recommend bringing in someone with experience in product growth, even if it's just on a consulting basis. They can help you assess your current situation, identify opportunities, and develop a strategy. Another option is to invest in training for your existing team. There are many online courses and workshops available that can help product managers, marketers, and engineers develop the skills they need to drive product growth. I also think it's important to start small and experiment. Don't try to overhaul your entire product or business overnight. Instead, identify a few key areas where you can make improvements and test different approaches. Finally, I'd encourage you to embrace a culture of data-driven decision-making. Make sure you have the tools and processes in place to track and analyze your metrics, and use that data to inform your decisions. Does that sound like a reasonable starting point?
It absolutely does. I'm curious about your view on the growth team's involvement in revenue goals. What involvement, if any, should they have in generating revenue?
That's a really interesting question, and one that I think a lot about. In my opinion, growth teams should definitely be involved in revenue generation, but their role should be more strategic than directly hitting sales targets. I see the growth team's primary responsibility as optimizing the user journey to drive revenue. This could involve identifying opportunities to upsell or cross-sell existing users, improving conversion rates on pricing pages, or developing new monetization strategies. The growth team can also work closely with the sales and marketing teams to align their efforts and ensure a seamless customer experience. Ultimately, the growth team's involvement in revenue goals will depend on the specific company and its business model. However, I believe that growth teams can play a valuable role in driving revenue growth by focusing on the user experience and optimizing the customer journey. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it sounds like great advice. It would be really helpful if you had a few concrete examples, especially at companies that you've either consulted for or worked for full time. So you can give us a firsthand view of what worked and what did not.
I'm happy to share some examples from my own experience. At SurveyMonkey, one of our key initiatives was to increase the conversion rate from free to paid users. We analyzed the user journey and identified several points where we could improve the experience, such as simplifying the pricing page and offering more personalized onboarding. We ran a series of experiments and were able to significantly increase the conversion rate, which had a direct impact on revenue. At Miro, we focused on driving collaboration and virality. We made it easier for users to share their boards with others, and we implemented a referral program that incentivized users to invite their colleagues. This led to a significant increase in user acquisition and engagement, which ultimately drove revenue growth. On the flip side, at Amplitude, we tried to implement a self-serve monetization model alongside the existing sales-led approach. However, we faced challenges in integrating the two models and managing expectations within the organization. Ultimately, we had to pivot from this approach and focus on other growth strategies. These are just a few examples, of course. Does this give you a better idea?
Yes. Is there any way you can give us a view on how you've approached your new role at Lovable in this area?
Sure, I'm excited about my role at Lovable. It's a unique opportunity to build a growth strategy from the ground up for a really innovative product. One of my first priorities has been to understand the user journey and identify the key moments that drive value and engagement. I'm also focused on building a strong data infrastructure to track and analyze our metrics. We're experimenting with different acquisition channels, onboarding flows, and monetization strategies to find what works best for our users. Given that Lovable is an AI-powered product, we're also exploring how AI can enhance the user experience and drive growth. For example, we're using AI to personalize onboarding, provide more relevant recommendations, and automate customer support. It's still early days, but I'm really excited about the potential of Lovable and the impact we can have on the market. Is there anything specific you're curious about?
Yes, absolutely. I'd really love to know about the ideal customer profile for Lovable and whether a growth team typically gets involved in refining that definition once they have gotten off the ground in an organization.
That's a great question. At Lovable, our ideal customer profile is really broad. We're targeting anyone who wants to bring their ideas to life quickly and easily, whether they're entrepreneurs, small business owners, or even just individuals with a creative project in mind. In terms of the growth team's involvement in refining the ICP, I definitely think it's something we should be involved in. As we acquire more users and gather more data, we can refine our understanding of who's getting the most value from Lovable and tailor our messaging and targeting accordingly. The growth team can also work closely with the product and marketing teams to ensure that we're building features and creating content that resonates with our ideal customers. Ultimately, refining the ICP is an ongoing process that requires collaboration across the entire organization. What do you think about this approach?
I think that sounds exactly as I would have expected. I wonder if some people are a little bit surprised to see how far-ranging the touch points are for a growth team culturally. What has your experience been with that?
You're right. The touch points for a growth team can be surprisingly far-ranging. In my experience, the most successful growth teams are those that can collaborate effectively with other teams across the organization. For example, growth teams often work closely with product teams to identify opportunities to improve the user experience and drive engagement. They also collaborate with marketing teams to develop and execute acquisition campaigns. And they partner with sales teams to optimize the customer journey and drive revenue growth. In some cases, growth teams may even work with engineering teams to build new features or improve the performance of the product. The key is to have a clear understanding of the company's goals and to be able to communicate effectively with other teams to achieve those goals. Have you seen this in your experience as well?
Yes, absolutely. I have worked very closely with marketing and sales teams, and of course with design and engineering. But I think maybe people don't quite realize that you also sometimes work with customer success or even security. What you're saying really resonates with me. Thank you for that. I wanted to ask you how you get into growth. What was your path to getting here?
My path to growth has been a bit unconventional, but I think it's helped me develop a unique perspective on the field. I started my career in analytics, building data teams at SurveyMonkey. I was responsible for everything from data warehousing to business intelligence, and I got a deep understanding of how data can be used to drive decision-making. Over time, I became more interested in using data to drive growth, so I transitioned into a growth role at SurveyMonkey, where I built the product growth team. From there, I went on to lead growth at other companies like Malwarebytes, Miro, and Amplitude. Along the way, I've learned a lot about different growth strategies and tactics, and I've developed a strong network of mentors and colleagues. I think my background in analytics has been invaluable in my growth career. It's helped me approach growth in a data-driven way and make informed decisions based on evidence. Does that help explain my journey?
Yes, absolutely. I was also very curious about how you work your career and your personal life together, because you are pretty open about the challenges sometimes with packing it all in and having a personal life. Would you be able to give our listeners a little bit of insight as to how you do this?
Balancing career and personal life is something I'm constantly working on, and it's definitely not always easy. I've learned that it's important to set boundaries and prioritize what matters most to me. One of the things that's helped me is to define my superpower zone, which is the intersection of what I'm great at and what I love doing. I try to focus my time and energy on activities that fall within this zone, and I say no to anything that doesn't align with it. I've also learned to be more intentional about my time. I schedule regular breaks throughout the day to recharge, and I make sure to carve out time for activities that I enjoy, like spending time with family and friends, traveling, and pursuing hobbies. It's also important to be realistic about what you can accomplish. You can't do everything, so you need to be willing to delegate, outsource, or simply let go of things that aren't essential. Finally, I think it's important to have a strong support system. Surround yourself with people who understand your goals and values and who can offer encouragement and support when you need it. What strategies have you found helpful in balancing your career and personal life?
All of the things that you mentioned, but I have to say, I don't know that balance is a real goal. I think it kind of is peaks and valleys, and you sort of manage it on a daily basis. That's been my experience. I have one more question for you. I would just love to be able to share with our listeners, where can we find you? What are the opportunities for us to learn more about you and your approach to growth?
I agree with you. Balance is definitely more of a dynamic process than a static state. It's about constantly adjusting and prioritizing based on what's most important at any given moment. As for where to find me, the best place to start is my newsletter at elenaverna.com. I share my thoughts on growth, PLG, and other topics there. I'm also active on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with me there. I also do podcasts and webinars from time to time, so keep an eye out for those. I'm always happy to connect with people who are passionate about growth and share my insights and experiences. Thank you so much for having me today. It's been a pleasure chatting with you and sharing my thoughts on product growth.
Thank you so much, Elena. This has been really wonderful. I appreciate it, and I'd love to talk again sometime in the future. For now, enjoy your day.
This podcast is an original production of Women in Product. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Women in Product YouTube channel. Leave us a review so that others can discover us, or share this episode with someone you know. Original music provided by Jimmy Hahn. Thanks for joining.